If you are elected governor, you're going to be walking into a fiscal mess. We've heard from a lot of New Yorkers who are just plain fed up.
They really need to balance the budget and create more jobs.
They need to straighten out Albany, cut back their expenses.
I feel that they're just talking loud and saying nothing, and I want to see something.
Okay, New York is facing an $8.2 billion deficit in the next fiscal year, and according to census data, there's well over $13,000 of state debt for every man, woman, and child in New York. Name 3 or 4 specific state programs that you would cut and how you would minimize the impact of those cuts on ordinary people. Candidates, you'll have 90 seconds each for this question, and then after everyone's spoken, you'll have 30 seconds of rebuttal. We begin with you, Mr. Palladino.
Thank you. I think this spending cuts are a very important issue to the people of New York State. Medicaid is probably our #1 out of control cost. This mandate cost has brought us to our knees. We spent $54 billion last year on Medicaid. The next highest state was California, 100% lower than us. Our budget was equal to California and Texas combined. Our Medicaid costs are wrought with fraud, waste, and abuse. They're also our rules and regulations are poorly drawn. We can attack that by simply providing good, firm management, and we can lower those costs. The second mandate that's very disabling, especially on local property taxes, is our education mandates coming down from Albany. This bureaucracy in Albany forces their mandates and their policies down on the local school districts. The centralized, the centralization of these policies with faceless people and in an environment that is totally unaccountable to the people is bad. We're going to dismember the New York State Education Department. And
our next candidate, Mr. McMillan, a minute and a half for you as well.
Could you please repeat? I couldn't hardly hear the question.
Name 3 or 4 specific programs that you would cut to tackle the state's budget deficit estimated at $8.2 billion.
Thank you. Well, the rent is too damn high. Party plan to declare an economic state of emergency and cut them all. They're not working. What we plan to do is lower rent for businesses, cut rent for tenants, and we're cutting property taxes and water taxes and sewer taxes. That's our plan. But to talk about the cuts under this program, nothing worked. This is a complete failure. And what we plan to do is to create put New York State in a position so that we will have a $3 to $6 trillion surplus. And that comes out of the cuts that we plan to make by lowering rent for businesses and lowering rent for tenants to give them money to spend to jumpstart this economy. That's what we plan to do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cuomo. A minute and a half for you as well.
Thank you. I think what we saw on the tape is exactly right. People understand that the state of New York government just doesn't get it. It spends money that it doesn't have, and it spends too much money. And people in their own lives have had to recalibrate with the new economy, but the state government is just still spending too much money. Taxes are out of control. They're oppressing families. They are chasing businesses from this state, and the businesses leave, the jobs leave. We are #1 in spending in Medicaid. We're #1 in spending in education and number 40 in terms of performance. In terms of government operations, we have over 1,000 state agencies right now. In terms of local governments, over 10,500. We're going to have to reduce the number of governments. We're going to have to reduce the number of state programs. We're going to have to cut Medicaid, and we're going to have to find savings in education because the taxes are too high. I think the question in this race is who can actually do it? Who can get it done? Because the woman is exactly right. We've heard it before. A lot of promises, very little progress. I've actually shrunk government. I did it when I worked in the federal government at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I'm doing it right now in the Attorney General's office, which will be smaller when I leave than when I started. And it's working. Who can shrink government? I have. Who can get it passed, get a budget passed from the legislature? They're no walk in the park. but I've gotten a lot of legislation passed, and I believe the moment is right to actually turn this state around, and the legislature gets it.
That's your time, Mr. Cuomo. Mr. Barron, a minute and a half for you as well.
Well, first I'd like to say that there should have been a Latino person, an indigenous person, and an Asian person asking questions too, because this is a diversified state. I don't accept the premise of your question. I don't think we should cut. We already cut to the bone. How about a progressive taxation? There are those in this state that are making millions of dollars. I would propose a progressive taxation package. If you're making $300,000 to $500,000, 1.5%. If you're making $500,000 to $1 million, 2.5%. If you're making $1 million to $5 million, 3.5%. And if you're making $10 million or more, you should pay more. We're already cut to the bones. It's time for us to get the wealthy, and they make up less than 1% of this population. Andrew Cuomo and Palladino, not only are they going to cut your programs and your vital services, they're also going to cut union pensions. They're also going to cut money from health care for unions. They're going to freeze union wages, because it's easy to be a political bully and take it out on the poor, struggling working class families and unions. How about taking it out on the rich? They have more, they should pay more. They don't have the courage to do that. We have to get rid of political cowardice and those who are controlled by corporate interest. It's time for us to say to the hard working class families in this state that when you retire, we're going to protect your pension.
Okay,
when
that is
you're
your
working,
time, Mr. Barron.
you're going to get a living wage.
Mr.
I would
Hawkins,
not cut
minute and a half for you,
programs.
sir.
What we need to cut is tax cuts for the rich. And what we need to cut, and I'll give you 3 of those, and what we also need to cut is an unfunded mandate, the county portion of the Medicaid. First thing I would cut is the rebate of the stock transfer tax. That was $16 billion last year, and they gave it back to the dealers on Wall Street and then said we're in a fiscal crisis, $9 billion deficit, when we should have had a $7 billion surplus, and we wouldn't have had to cut the transit and the schools and the public safety and all these cuts. These cuts are politics, not economics. Second thing I would do is put a banker's bonus tax out there, 50% on the $20 billion that the bankers paid themselves with bailout money we gave them from the federal government. And then I would go back to the 1972 progressive income tax structure that would give 95% of us a cut in income taxes and still raise $8 billion more. 16 plus 10 plus 8 is 34. Subtract the $9 billion deficit, that's the number I've heard, you got $25 billion. The woman asked about jobs. Public jobs if you can't get a job in the private sector, like the old Works Progress Administration. That was started here by Governor Rockefeller. We're calling for a Green New Deal that makes the new job investment in both providing direct public employment and investment in clean energy and mass transit. That's the direction we got to go. This is money-drenched politicians, not impersonal market forces, that this is about, this fiscal crisis. These people want to cut to protect the tax cuts for the rich. No, no, no.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Ms. Davis, minute and a half for you as well.
I don't think it comes as a shock to anyone in this room that our state spending is out of control. We spend $242 million a year on economic development, and there are no jobs. I'm the only candidate on this stage with a plan to bring in new revenues into the state, which will create new jobs. The legalization of marijuana would bring in $1.5 billion in new tax revenue. The legalization of casino gambling would bring in roughly $2 billion in new tax revenue and an immediate 50,000 jobs. We need to cut our spending, but we cannot restore economic growth to this state unless we bring in new revenue.
Thank you. Mr. Redlick, minute and a half.
Thank you. My friend Frank Ioli is a retired school teacher in Gloversville. I saw Frank the other day. He's writing a book. His book is titled, You Gotta Be Kidding Me. And I told Frank I had a new one for him. I said, Frank, guess what the head of the New York Public Library makes? And Frank guessed 100,000. I shook my head. He said, I don't know, 150? The head of the New York Public Library makes $689,000 a year. Now, I know it's a big library, but that's a little much. You know what Frank said? He said, you gotta be kidding me. There are 110,000 bureaucrats in New York State who make over $100,000 a year. We can save nearly $3 billion if we cap bureaucrat pay at $100,000 a year and cap pensions at $75,000. We can do more. We can end corporate welfare. We spend $3 billion a year on corporate welfare. It has to stop. And we can close the Thruway Authority and end the tolls. We can let the Department of Transportation handle the highways. If we stop wasting money, you will have more in your pocket, and we can take care of the things that are important, like schools, parks, and bridges. Google stop wasting money to find out more.
Okay, Mr. Redlich, that's your time. For this question, candidates, we're offering you another 30 seconds if you would like, and we would begin with Mr. Palladino.
Thank you. I was saying on education, we should be destructuring our State Board of Education so as to just set out general policies. Bring back to the local school districts those mandates and policies that are so costly to them, and let them handle it on a local basis. As to Medicare, I wanted to say one more thing. No person on Medicare today who needs Medicare will feel any effect of our reductions in, excuse me, not Medicare, in Medicaid benefits.
Okay, Mr. Palladino, I'm sorry, that's your 30 seconds. Mr. McMillan, would you like 30 seconds more?
Allow me to introduce myself. I represent the rent is too damn high party. People are working 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week in some a third job. Women can't afford to take care of their children, feed their children breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My main job is to provide a roof over your head, food on the table, and money in your pocket. This is politics as usual. Playing the silly game. It's not going to happen. The rent too damn high movement, the people I'm here to represent can't afford to pay their rent. They're being laid off right now as I speak. They can't eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Listen, someone's stomach, child's stomach just growled. Did you hear it? You gotta listen like me.
Okay,
let's talk about the issue. People can't afford to pay their rent.
30 seconds for you, sir.
Rent is too damn high.
Thank you. There is waste and fraud all through these programs. I spent 4 years in the belly of the beast, looking at state government. There is waste and fraud all through these programs. The Medicaid program, we have 500 convictions, recovered $700 million. School program, right here on Long Island, we recovered money stopping the school superintendents from double dipping, $500,000 school superintendents. We have to cut the waste and fraud, and you can't make the taxpayers pay for it any longer.
Okay, Mr. Cuomo. Mr. Barron, 30 seconds.
Well, first of all, if you do the stock transfer tax, if you do a commuter tax, if you do taxation in a progressive way, not hurting people, there will be money for programs that are vital to our people. We cannot continue to cut our way out of this. We must begin to say to those who have it, you must contribute. When you look at education and you look at health care, those are the two biggest items. We can no longer say we're going to cut Medicaid, we're going to cut workers, health care workers. We have to say we will protect them with a progressive taxation
30 seconds for you, sir.
Well, in my first 90 seconds, I only got 3 of the 4 cuts. The other thing I would cut is that unfunded mandate, the county portion of Medicaid. That is equal to 45% of county's tax revenues. We have the state take that over. The best way is a single-payer health care system, and then you can cut your property taxes at the local level and still have money to fund your schools. We don't have to cut our services. We just have to make the tax structure more progressive so the rich start pulling their weight in our society again. You know, we give them welfare like they need incentives.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Ms. Davis, 30 seconds.
Additional taxes are not the answer. The stock transfer tax is a job killer. Brokers and investors can trade from anywhere. To tax stocks traded within New York will force the businesses out of this state. It will kill thousands of jobs and decimate our economies. In fact, businesses will leave this state quicker than Carl Palladino at a gay bar.
Thank you. Mr. Redlich, 30 seconds for you.
Thank you. Mr. Cuomo, I read your book. And Mr. Cuomo's book, he says that he's going to create, the way he's going to cut spending is the first thing is he's going to create a new commission. That's a career politician for you. The way to cut spending is to spend more money on a new commission. And then once the commission comes up with his recommendations, then he's going to get the legislature to give him authority to make the changes without their approval. Anybody think Sheldon Silver is going to agree with that? Raise your hand. Mr. Cuomo, I don't see any hands. You might want to write a new book.